damn about any of this, right? They are talking tonight, and the momentum that she's achieved in the most extraordinarily successful, I mean, we compare her candidacy to Obama's, but President Obama had months and months to get to where she got in days and days. So what she has to build, this incredibly successful movement candidacy, what she gets to do tonight is to take that sort of political special sauce that she and only she has ever done in American politics and present it to the largest TV audience. That's it. Nobody watching that she cares about politically and statistically gives a damn about the rules. And for whatever the rules are, dumb, not dumb, fair, not fair, they agreed to them. So she's not the victim of any of the rules. Yeah. She agreed to them. She's there tonight. So the rules are what the rules are. But what her really miracle campaign needs to do tonight is to leave all of this to us, right? Leave this to cable chatter and go grab the voters that still haven't, seen a rally or don't know who she is, or maybe have heard some of those lies. Maybe they heard she's a radical San Francisco liberal, and she used to stand there and do what Liz Cheney said was deliver a speech that George W. Bush could have given, or Ronald Reagan, which is probably so far the largest TV audience that has seen her. But if you saw her that night and you see her tonight and she gives, again, what Liz Cheney said was a speech that Ronald Reagan could have given, you won't believe the lies. And so this is interesting, ceaselessly interesting to us. And I actually have an even more radical view than you. I think they should ask one question. Who won 2020? And if they can't get time to tell the truth or answer, I don't think they should go any further. Stay on it. But your attorney general said that was bullshit. But Chris Krebs said it. I mean, I actually have an even more radical view than you do on the rules, but I'm not sure that helps Kamala Harris sustain the momentum.
This is what Chris Hayes was saying earlier in our coverage, saying that what Harris needs to do, needs to calibrate correctly, is the relationship between how much time she spends even acknowledging there's somebody else on the stage and how much time she spends speaking through the camera to people at home who are watching her, who are trying to figure out whether or not they want to vote for her.
And it's a very difficult thing to calibrate because obviously she's a human being, so he's going to say things that are luridly false, to Lawrence's point. I mean, not just lies, but lies that are, libelous, right? Like lies that are like disgusting. Lies are the kind of things that like are that you would get you kicked off of social media platforms once upon a time. So we'll say things like that, and the question about like how you respond or not. I also do think like there's two parts of the debate. There's the fact that she's going to have more people she can talk to than any other audience she's going to probably ever have. Then there is, to your point, Lawrence, about the post-debate narrative chewing. And we do know that, like, one of the things that does happen is that does matter a lot, right? Because there's what people see, and then there's the discussion afterwards, and the knock-on effects, and the clips on TikTok, and all of that sort of thing. And to your point, Lawrence, I really do think, like, this is where the asymmetry is at its most intense and egregious, right? If Kamala Harris yesterday had posted identically what Donald Trump did on Twitter, it would literally be the only story in America today. I don't even think there's a question about that. It would be a front page story in the New York Times. It would lead all the networks. It would be everything. Kamala Harris calls to prosecute and jail donor. What?
Right.
But
the New York Times would literally cancel every other opinion piece they had planned for the rest of the week and have everybody write on that, all condemning it.
And so there is just this unavoidable asymmetry.
Yeah.
And maybe it's avoidable if depending on the press, but that will also be part. There's two stages here. There's Kamala Harris addressing the American people, and there's the way that this debate gets digested in that sort of broader way.
We have to take one last break before we're getting into the debate tonight. I want to remind you that you can watch the whole debate right here, plus our analysis thereafter. California Governor Gavin Newsom is going to be joining us from Philadelphia right after we squeeze in this very quick break. Governor Newsom with Alex Wagner just ahead. We'll be right back.
This outdated DMV has two forms of My ID.
Think of all the places that can expose your info. LifeLock monitors millions of data points for identity theft. If there's a problem, we fix it. Guaranteed.
University of Maryland Global Campus is a school for real life, one that values the successes you've already achieved. Earn up to 90 undergraduate credits for relevant experience and get the support you you need from your first day to graduation day and beyond. What will your next success be?
A heart attack? Do they have life insurance?
No.
But we have life insurance. John.
I'm trying to find something we can afford.
Fortunately, in only a few minutes, SelectQuote found John a $500,000 policy for only $29 a month. And his wife Ann a $500,000 policy for only $21 a month. Go to SelectQuote.com now and get the insurance your family needs
at a price you can afford. SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
If you're feeling out of step with your current big wireless plan, switch! Switch to Consumer Cellular. Switch! All the dips is the price. Ow, ow, ow. Storm. The plan starting at just $20. It's easy to switch to Consumer Cellular.
Kamala Harris cast the tie-breaking vote that created America's inflation.
Vice President votes in the affirmative, and the bill is passed.
Economists said Harris's vote led directly to the higher prices we pay. 22% more for groceries, 50% more for gas. Mortgage costs nearly double. Thanks a lot, Kamala. Trump had our economy humming. He'll do it again.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Oz for the facts. Susie here is shopping for a used car, but she doesn't know that nearly half of them have been in an accident.
Interesting.
But Carfax.com shows how accidents impact price, so she doesn't have to overpay. Unpause. Shop the all-new Carfax.com.
Here are some of the iconic artists performing live at this year's Video Music Awards. Anita, Benson Boone, Camila Cabello, Chappell Roan, Glorilla, Halsey, Karol G, Lenny Kravitz, Lisa, LL Cool J, Rauw Alejandro, Sabrina Carpenter, and Shawn Mendes. Plus a can't-miss performance by Video Vanguard, Katy Perry. And it's all hosted by Megan Thee Stallion. The MTV Video Music Awards, live tomorrow at 8, 7 Central.
There's some things that work better together, like your workplace benefits and retirement savings. Voya helps you choose the right amounts without over or under investing, so you can feel confident in your financial choices.
Voya, well planned, well invested, well protected.
Why didn't we do this last year?
Before you implementing migraine and Qulipta?
And look at me now. You'll never truly forget migraine, but 0 migraine days are possible.
Don't take if allergic to Qulipta. Most common side effects are nausea, constipation, and sleepiness.
Qulipta, the forget you get migraine medicine.
Big companies run on Monday.com. We run the orca species, and it gives us the visibility and foresight to hit our Q3 migration targets easily.
Mobilizing an entire species across 5 oceans is a massive operation.
Monday gives us the visibility to predict different scenarios, like potential danger and devouring seals. Let's avoid killing references. Managing food supply. Approved. See? Full visibility.
Visibility for whatever you run. Start your free trial at Monday.com.
If it's gorgeous you want, stunning, beautiful, look for the grit. Because it's the pros who are out there, pulling together dozens of projects a year, thousands in a lifetime. They're not cookie cutter and never the same. Pros know what looks amazing, and they know where remarkable is always in stock. At Floor & Decor.
I was recruited to start this secret mission to dig up dirt on Joe and Hunter Biden.
This was a mission impossible. Mission stupid.
This is literally like a senile spy movie. I mean, James Bond has nothing on us.
Introducing MSNBC Premium on Apple Podcasts. Get early access and ad-free listening to Rachel Maddow's chart-topping series, bonus content, and new episodes of Morning Joe and MSNBC original podcasts ad-free. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
So the term spin room is both a little nauseating and sounds kind of derisive, but it's neither. It's become a sort of term of art in politics. It's the room, or in this case, the cavernous site, where people who aren't the candidates themselves go before and after the debate to do interviews and talk to reporters about what the candidates are going to do or have just done in that debate. In the spin room tonight in Philadelphia, among the very high-profile supporters and elected Democrats who are there on behalf of Kamala Harris, is our next guest, California Governor Gavin Newsom, who is standing by right now in Philly with Alex Wagner. Over to you, Alex.
Thanks, Rachel. I just want everybody at home to know, for truth in journalism. I'm on a booster seat right now. There's no way I'm even approaching the governor's
set up
site.
even more then.
Yeah, thanks for that.
That's right.
Governor, I think we all remember at the convention you took Vice President Harris over the top and officially nominated her on the floor. It was an exciting moment for California. I know you have a long history with the Vice President. Can you talk a little bit about how, what your expectations are for tonight from someone who's on the biggest stage, arguably of her political life, but has been, making the argument for a while?
Well, I mean, in the frame of expectations, and I don't want to overstate, but I don't want to understate, I have great expectations because I've seen her up close. I've been at those debates that people have seen game tape on, they've seen videos on. I was in the room. I've seen her underestimated, particularly, dare I say, with men.
Yeah.
I've seen her capacity to get under their skin. I've seen her capacity, and forgive me, this is not just a rote and cliche thing to say, prosecute the case, whatever that case may be, both against the candidate, but also prosecute the case for the future. So I think we're going to see both and tonight. I think she's going to be tough. I don't think she's going to sit back and take it from Trump. I think she's going to give plenty, but I also think she's going to be talking about you. She's going to be talking about me, the people watching at home.
You bring up the sort of gender piece of this, which I think is worth talking a little bit about, because in the last debate that you and I both attended, which was featured President Biden and Donald Trump, Trump was kind of self-contained to a large degree. I mean, he was still saying rambling, incoherent, he was spreading disinformation, but he was not as aggressively mendacious as he has been.
He didn't need to be. He had someone, he had a different person on the other side.
Yeah.
And if President Biden took it to him, he's thin-skinned. He's weakness masquerading as strength. And this is a fragile guy. He's a broken person. I mean, really is. And as a consequence of that, he's incredibly vulnerable to reverting to who he really is, which is someone that doesn't necessarily feel worthy and is trying to overcompensate. And I think that's easily exploited. He's easily manipulated, and he's easy and prone to get off message. And I think that's why I think she has opportunity to be particularly effective tonight, because I don't think she's going to be timid. I don't think she's going to overdo it, but I think she will take that prosecutorial mindset. And I'll tell you what, Kamala Harris will show up tonight, not Kamala. I think this is also about dignity. It's also about respect, and she's going to demand it on stage. And if he doesn't provide it, he may regret that.
Yeah, it feels like because she's a woman, because she's a person of color, she triggers Trump in a way that Biden didn't necessarily. And Trump's ability to control himself, we are already hearing from his campaign, may be in question tonight. I do wonder, when you say you're confident that she's going to bring her prosecutorial A game, one of the things that's been successful for her in previous debates and previous moments is her ability to be naturally herself and to laugh at things that are worth laughing at, or to have sort of natural human reactions to things. How much do you expect humor to be a tool she deploys against?
Well, I know we've talked a lot about that, and I've seen a lot. I mean, people ask, what is about Kamala Harris that most people don't know, that you know, going back decades and decades? Is her humor? Is her wit? Is the joy you're now seeing? I saw her a few weeks ago at a fundraiser and said, this joy is back. It's the old Kamala. There's a lightness to her. And so I think she can still bring that as she brings it to Donald Trump, and then pivots to, again, prosecute the case for the future. Because here's the differentiator. People say, well, how could she be the change candidate? She is change. She's not Joe Biden, and she sure as hell is not Donald Trump. But she can focus on the future because she represents the next generation, a new generation. But that's, again, prosecuting the case for a future where everyone feels seen and everyone feels included.
That's a lot to do, right? Humor, natural reactions, prosecuting. You're someone who is a habitué, can I say that, of Newsmax and Fox. You are unafraid of going, to the other side, Earth 2, as we like to call it, on MSNBC. How do you pick and choose which pieces of disinformation, which trolls to respond to in a format where, there's a healthy back and forth?
Well, I think when you're demeaning other people, when you're attacking vulnerable communities, when you're being a bully, I think that's when you stand up. And I think that's about character. That's about values. And I think anytime it reflects in that space, where you're attacking the LGBTQ community, where you're attacking minority communities, where you're attacking immigrants, you're talking down or past people, standing up tall and asserting yourself and pushing back, I think that has universal traits. We all want to be loved. We all need to be loved. We all want to be respected. We all want to be protected. We all want to be connected to something larger than ourselves. If she can bring that universality to this and defend the defenseless, boy, she walks away with this debate.
Let me ask you one last one in terms of just how we should be thinking about this debate, because I think belatedly we're having this national conversation about sane-washing Donald Trump. The fact that this man has been rambling incoherently, irresponsibly for months, if not years, but it's been especially acute in recent weeks. And I think we're finally having this dialogue about how do you not normalize, or how do you not trend towards coherence when you're talking about what Trump just said? How do you accurately sort of explain to the American public the mendacity, the incoherence, the irresponsibility, the aggression in a way that accurately reflects the tone and tenor of a person that is increasingly unhinged?
He's not only unhinged, but he's derivative of himself. I find him incredibly...
Wait, what does that mean, derivative of himself?
He's boring. And this, I may get in trouble, particularly with this audience. 5 or 6 years ago, you'd tune in, maybe for the train wreck, the clown show, but there was some entertainment value. I mean, you've been watching some of his speeches. It's monotone. He's boring across the board. Even in his audiences, you see people paying attention not to the speech, to themselves, walking out early.
Looking at their clocks.
He's lost a step. And what happened, what I think will happen tonight, I expect, if she's successful, he'll start off that old Trump, perhaps in that last debate, and try to be the new Trump again. He's one guy universally graded on the curve. He's, in his little pity party, he's the victim. He's always been the victim. But there'll be a point where he gets off his game. These are 2 minutes. That's a long period of time. 2 minutes, 2 minutes.
2 minute answers.
The 1 minute follow-up, he's incapable of not taking the bait. And she's very capable of not taking the bait. She's extraordinarily disciplined, particularly in an environment like this. Again, look back at her one-on-one debates. Consistently, back decades and decades. This is where she shows up and shines. All that said, I'm not naive. This guy doesn't play by the rules, which means then he has more options in a debate. And when someone has more options, he's a more challenging person to debate. So I'm not suggesting this is not only high stakes, this is a huge challenge, but I have all the confidence, back to your opening question, that she's up for the challenge.
All right, Governor Gavin Newsom, it is great to hear perspective, some words of wisdom as we head into a consequential night in American politics. Back to you, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you, Governor. Troy, on that last point that he just made, he said he may lose people in our audience by saying it, but he essentially said, that Trump is derivative of himself. Alex got him to clarify that by that he means he's boring. He says Trump used to be, even in his political life, more entertaining, but now he's so self-referential that he actually can't hold a tune. Like he can't tell a good joke. He can't follow a story through to the end. He can't make a point. He's constantly referring back to some tangential or self-referential thing in a way that loses people. And he's describing that as a weakness that Trump won't be able to sort of resist falling into, particularly as the night goes on.
Yeah, and I think it's always important to remember this Donald Trump is 4 years older than the Trump that debated Hillary Clinton. And he's older yet than the person who was on The Apprentice, who could read, when the producers would tell him who to fire, he could do that, he could perform that. Yeah. But to
8 years older than Clinton when he was debating Clinton.
Absolutely. Yeah. 8 years older. Sorry, 8 years older. Sorry, your time is a myth. Nicole makes this point a lot. His act is so stale that Fox doesn't even really cover him live anymore. It's very rare that they take him, because I think they've even started to realize it's unhelpful to their preferred candidate to show him. And the more that you actually watch him, which is why, we all debate whether to show him. We do show him sometimes, because you watch it and what you really see is a decrepit mind. You see a person who is declining. He is the oldest person ever to run for president, and it is clear that he is in some form of cognitive decline, and he keeps referring back to things that make him comfortable. Hannibal Lecter, the movie that he went to the premiere for, the second version of. He goes to places that are bizarre, which he calls the weave. But I think to take it back to what Lauren said, and I think to what Nicole said too, this is the reason that this debate is so artificial and so in some ways built in a nonsensical way. Because they are sane-washing him in real time by muting his microphone and not showing you what Trump is really like, which is the way he is at his rallies. what they're doing is presenting an artificially cleaned up version of Donald Trump. And so I think for Vice President Harris, she really can't think about him. Like, I think about the way she responded to Dana Bash when, you know, God bless Dana, she asked that absurd question about her race, making her defend her racial identity. And she said, same old thing, next thing. And it was such a brilliant way to just dismiss something stupid. I think she does need to correct things like the tariffs and explain, you know, what a tariff is. You know, I think if that comes up. But I think all she has to do, I'll just reiterate what I said before, this is a 90-minute TV show for Vice President Harris to present herself to the small number of people who are watching, who want to vote, who are not non-voters, but who for whatever reason have not gone from Biden to her, from Indy to her, or from not voting to her. Treat it like a TV show, and that's your audience. Lawrence, how do you get those people to vote?
Yeah, you know, look, you have to think about Donald Trump as a TV show, because he is, okay? It's in its 9th year. This is the 9th year of the series. There's no TV series in history that was better in its 9th year than its 4th year or its 1st year, okay? Never. And audience fatigue sets in on most TV series before they ever get to 9, okay? And you're lucky if you're fading out at 7. And so he is stretching this TV series now into its 9th year with no new episodes. It's the same script from the pilot, from the first episode.
The problem, though, is that the sort of product tie-ins are a lot more lethal, right? Like, there's not a toy in the cereal box. There's a loaded gun at our democracy. I mean, the problem is that the saturation of the TV show is into the most extreme elements of our politics. And I think that, you know, Chris Christie has an op-ed out tonight, and he makes some good points, having prepped Trump 30 times and having debated him himself, that Harris seems to have already incorporated in her presentation to this really important swath of voters. And I would add to your list, she should go for two-time Trump voters who have had enough of the TV show. I mean, I think there are a lot of them.
How do you get those, Nicole?
Well, I think you put Dick Cheney on a bus with Bernie Sanders and send him to Erie, PA, and then if they can be in the bus together that long, they are as well. Michigan, and then maybe drive them, or maybe you ask Josh Shapiro where he deployed all the Republicans who endorsed him. Josh Shapiro ran a coalition candidacy. That's how he destroyed Doug Mastriano. She now has a coalition of support, and I think if you know David Plouffe, and we all do from being on TV, he's going to make sure she takes his TV audience and communicates about things they care about, the cost of everything, housing, school, education, groceries, everything. But I think in terms of sort of the political building blocks that she has to work with, she will do all this. And to your point about the filter we put on this, we can't sit here and say, did she speak to the kitchen table issues? Did she fact check him because the moderators refused to? All she has to do is I think what the governor said. I mean, if you look at how she dismantled Brett Kavanaugh and Jeff Sessions and Bill Barr, it wasn't by saying, Brett Kavanaugh, you've never backed a law that controls a man's body. It was by saying, Mr. Kavanaugh, do you know of any laws that govern what a man can do to his body? I'm sorry, what? I don't understand the question. I'll repeat it. Do you know about, I mean, she's very good at asking questions that reveal everything about men that are a million times smarter than Donald Trump will ever be.
While Kamala Harris is in Philadelphia for tonight's debate, her running mate, Tim Walz, has spent the day campaigning in swing state Arizona. He's expected to attend a debate watch party there in Mesa, Arizona. You're looking live at that venue right now. I can also tell you that after the debate, Democratic Vice Presidential nominee Tim Walz will be joining us. He will be our guest here on MSNBC. You guys, he's coming. Look busy. We're going to be his only cable news interview tonight once the debate is over. So be sure to stay tuned after the debate for that interview. But speaking of Arizona, let's go now to NBC News political and national correspondent Jacob Soboroff, famous for being the easiest man to talk to in all of American news. Jacob is watching the debate tonight with a focus group of swing state, Arizona. He's in Phoenix. Now, Jacob, I understand some of the folks who are there with you tonight talked to us at MSNBC after the first presidential debate as well between Trump and Biden. There's not total overlap with the whole group, but some of those folks are overlap. It's going to be especially interesting to hear from them now.
Yeah, I'm excited to reintroduce everybody to some of those folks, Rachel. And the reason that we're inside, by the way, and Tim Walz will be inside tonight, and the watch parties are inside, is it is 107 degrees right now in Phoenix, Arizona. They've had some ridiculous stretch of over 100-degree temperatures in Arizona. So our friends at 12 News here in Phoenix, our NBC partner and the affiliate here, have been nice enough to invite us inside. 12 News has also been following the race here very closely, not just because Maricopa County, obviously Phoenix, where we are, is the largest swing jurisdiction in the entire nation with 4.5 million voters. This state, Arizona, was decided by only 11,000. But because the candidates have been here nonstop, ultimately this thing is going to come down to the voters. And let's go see them right now, Rachel. They've been nice enough to hand over one of their sets here to us. And if you remember, Rachel, last time wasn't me, it was Gotti Schwartz. But Jeff, our friend Jeff here, was one of the folks that you met last time. Jeff, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, your quote after the debate was, Donald Trump, hell no, Biden, oh no. Is that correct?
That's right. And so now we come to the next debate, and we have to decide, is Kamala Harris up to the task of taking Trump down, because he's unacceptable on every basis level.
And do you think you could come out of this? Perhaps you didn't want to go with either of them after the last one. You think you could come out, go on Vice President Harris after this one?
It's either that or I'm not going to vote for president.
Okay, all right. I'm going to quickly try to go around the table if I can real quick. Nicole was with us last time as well, Rachel. Nicole, I remember you saying to Gotti that you were prayerful about your husband and you not participating ultimately at the top of the ticket. How are you feeling today?
Very much the same. I mean, I need to see a different character than I've seen consistently in the past, and I'd have to go forward to see that character continue to change.
Okay, and this is Juan Carlos, Rachel. Juan Carlos wasn't with us last time. This will be Juan Carlos's first election. I'm always excited to talk to a first-time voter. Juan Carlos, you're leaning towards Trump, but you have said you don't like the rhetoric that you hear from him on immigration. Is there a chance, based on what you see tonight, you could go the other direction?
There's a small chance because my family came here legally, but they're illegal immigrants, and I refer to southern countries as in civil war with me, you know.
Okay, we'll see you after the debate as well. This is Romeo, guys. Romeo, you were talking about how you went for Biden back in 2020. You're leaning towards Trump now, but tonight you could ultimately sway the other way. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really just looking for Kamala to affirm where she stands on a lot of these issues where I've heard she's flip-flopped a lot, so I really just want to see where she stands.
I'm so excited to watch with all these people. Rachel, you might remember Denise, who said she wrote herself in at the top of the ticket in both 2016 and in 2020. Are you still thinking about doing that this time around, or is this debate maybe going to be a game changer for you?
I'm still thinking about it this time around. I've done a lot of research on it, and there are 8 states, one of which being Pennsylvania, which allows writing candidate votes to count without having to file any paperwork.
Okay, Denise, we're going to be checking in with you after the debate. Remind me your name one more time. Forgive me.
Julian.
Julian's a musician. Julian is somebody who is not always participating in the political process, right? You were telling us before this, when it was Biden versus Trump, that you perhaps felt like the candidates didn't understand your life. But if I'm not mistaken, you feel a little bit differently right now, right?
Yeah, I think that Vice President Kamala Harris, she goes more towards the middle class, and I'm considered middle class.
You were saying that even you are struggling maybe with paying for housing. You thought you could end up, I mean, it's not an exaggeration, you could end up homeless if stuff with your job doesn't go the right way.
Yeah, if I don't come up with the money for my rent, or if I can't find a job by October. Sometime in October.
That's what you'll be listening for tonight. Julian, thank you very much. We'll check in with Julian after the debate. And finally, guys, this is Bonnie. Bonnie is a retired school teacher, 30 years as an elementary school teacher, right, Bonnie? The thing I love about what Bonnie said to us before the debate is you said there's a lot of sort of pejoratives thrown around about undecided voters, often that they're uninformed, they're not paying attention. You say that's the exact opposite with you. You've been paying very close attention. How are you still undecided?
That is correct. I have been paying a lot of attention, and the negativity overshadows the issues, and so I'm still at the point where I'm undecided, or possibly I will not vote for president.
And could that change tonight?
I'm coming in with an open mind, and hopefully I will feel strongly toward one of our candidates.
Well, that's why we have assembled this group. Rachel, guys, it's going to be really exciting to be here with everybody tonight and watch. I want to say thanks again to our colleagues here at 12 News in Phoenix, and we'll be here on the other side of the debate, guys. We'll see you then.
Cannot wait to hear whether or not the things that everybody's looking for is what they hear from the debate. That's going to be fascinating to turn around. You should also tell everybody that their audition to be local news people went very well, and they're all in line for a job at 12.
She said you guys could all be a part of the 12 News team after we're done with this, based on how you look at the anchor desk. Rachel, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. I'll show you after the debate. I know you got other things to do.
No, go on. Go on.
Okay, come on, check this out. I knew you were going to do this. Here we go. The real Phoenix is behind the fake Phoenix. I had no idea.
What?
Oh, that's amazing.
Wait. So there's an opaque screen that shows a fake view of the real view?
Just in case. It could be very hot. You know, we don't want these people to be sweating while we're watching the debate in here. But when the time is right, you open it up and you see it. You all know I'm a schwitzer. I kept it closed. But anytime we'll open it up.
Thank you very much, Jacob. Appreciate it. Fantastic. 107 degrees right now in Phoenix between 5:30 and 6 o'clock at night.
100 days straight, new record for the city of Phoenix. 100 days straight with temperatures reaching over 100 degrees. Smashed the old record, which was in the 50s or 60s, I think.
Wow.
What are you saying? What are you implying?
No idea. I think we need to drill, baby, drill. I think we got to drill our way out of the heat in Phoenix. That's my platform.
Is the woman who writes herself her name in trying to get other people to do it as well?
Yeah, I feel like she might have...
She's trying to create a case for the viability.
Yes, exactly. You're trying to campaign.
Yeah. I was, on the climate issue, I spent a little bit of time with the Trump and Republican Party platform, which I will admit I did not spend a lot of time on before, because I didn't think there was much there. But in addition to the one-page document that they released a 16-page thing. And the climate proposal is literally coal.
Yes.
I mean, that's the idea is coal.
Bring back coal.
We need to bring back coal.
Agenda 47 or Project
Agenda 47, not the Project 2025 thing, which they're trying to distance themselves from, which is hilarious. But literally the Agenda 47, what he's proposing.
It's interesting, too, because Joy was talking about these sort of like his mental grooves and the places he goes back to comfortably. There are three positions that he has. Three actual, what you could recognize what we call policy positions. Everything goes back to them. Border security, border wall. Tariffs ring around the country, which are sort of the same thing conceptually in certain ways. And then drill, baby, drill. And we played this amazing clip where a guy at the Sturgis motorcycle rally asked him a great question, Fox and Friends, being like, I've got multiple kids who are trying to rent. The rental prices in these cities are insane, and I'm paying my income. What should we do about it? Perfectly great, like, brass tacks of it. And he basically goes on a drill, baby, drill.
Yeah.
And it's like, the drilling's not going to bring the rent down, but it is his go-to. You watch tonight. The comfort place he goes to is open the taps on oil and tariffs on and border securities. Those three planks.
And we're being laughed at as a country.
Yes.
Yeah, and mass deportation, which I hope comes up. I mean, there are a few things that I think. There's a lot of onus on ABC, the moderators, because if they don't bring up the fact that he has accused Haitians of eating people's pets, or if they don't bring up his plan to mass deport 12 million people and ask, well, how would you choose the 12 million people? How would you round them up? What would be the process? Why would it be bloody? Like, that seems like that should come up. The climate issue seems like it. So it'll be interesting to see what choices they make about the questions to ask him, and hopefully it just won't be framing things he said about Vice President Harris as questions for her and for him to expound upon.
We're just a few minutes out from the start of the debate. Nicole, I understand you have a special guest standing by on the screen.
Yeah, we are really lucky to have someone that we all have grown to turn to in times like this. Joining us now from the debate spin room in Philadelphia is Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth. It is so essential that you are there, and I wonder how strongly you feel or what your thoughts are about the cacophony of voices, specifically speaking to Trump's lack of fitness to lead the military after his stunt at Arlington and after his pretty public displays of disregard for the men and women of the military.
Ukrainian refugees here in Warsaw.
We'll take you there.
Stream ABC News live weeknights wherever you stream your news. Only on ABC News Live.
First thing in the morning.
There's a lot going on.
We're still in a flash flood morning.
To catch you up with what happened overnight, clashing over national security,
What's happening today? Tensions in the Middle East.
what people are talking about, the worries on Wall Street,
Fast, straightforward.
with some fun in between. Catching up on sleep during the weekend could be good for your heart.
Non-alcoholic bars are popping up in a growing number of cities. That's the spirit.
America This Morning
America's #1 early morning news.
on ABC News Live.
If you were coming of age in the 1980s, the
Brat Pack was near the center of your cultural awareness. But for those of us experiencing it from the inside, the Brat Pack was something very different.
The critics agree.
Hated the Brat Pack. What a disaster.
Why did we take it as an offense?
I'm not going to say we were Beatles or anything.
Well, we didn't spell Shea Stadium. 1985?
I think we could have.
Betrayal is one of the hardest types of trauma to overcome.
This is her night in shining armor.
Everything felt right. All of a sudden, I found this hidden folder. I opened it. I don't think I can say it. I'm sorry. It's shocking. My stomach just dropped. He just really didn't think I had it in me to do something. So, I did.
Betrayal, A Father's Secret, the all-new season on Hulu.
More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source.
Here's to Good Mornings in America. Mornings that inspire, filled with hope, kindness, joyous surprises, and so much fun. Start your day with Good Morning America's Ray of Sunshine, highlighting the best of America. Get ready to smile and put the good into your morning, America.
You know what will make the morning better? A little ray of sunshine.
Reporting from the 2024 Democratic National Convention in Chicago, I'm Kira Phillips. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, I'm Martha Raddatz. We're live from Philadelphia in the National Constitution Center, the site of tonight's debate, now about 10 minutes away.
And I'm Jonathan Carl here with Mary Bruce and Rachel Scott. The candidates are just off the stage, ready to walk out. They are in their hold rooms, just minutes from making that walk. Martha, you have been backstage at this moment. What's it like?
Well, it's stressful, but it's also that time you just say, this is go time. You get in your zone. I'm sure the nominees, the candidates right now are thinking the same thing. They've studied. They're going to go out. Open it.
All right, well, then let's bring somebody in who has been there both debating Donald Trump and helping him prepare for general election debates, the former governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie. So Chris, you've helped prepare Trump for this moment several times. He says he doesn't prepare, but he actually does. Bring us into that room right now. What's going on with Donald Trump?
Well, look, at this point, he's in the worst hour of his prep, because you just have to sit there and wait for the time to come, and they make you get there early. And so he's there. He's not really being spoken to. You know, a little small talk here and there, but nobody's trying to give him any kind of clues.
So let me ask you the question. Let me ask you the question I tried to ask Tom Cotton. He didn't exactly give me an answer, but you will. Which Trump is going to show up tonight? You know what I mean by that. Which Trump?
I think at the beginning of the debate, the Trump who will show up will be the calmer Donald Trump. He knows inherently after the 2020 first debate against Joe Biden that the other Donald Trump is not the one that's a winning formula. The question's going to be, will he be able to continue to maintain that approach through questioning by David and Lindsay and through any comments that Vice President Harris makes in his direction? And that'll be the key to how he performs tonight.
And you and I were talking, you helped prepare him for those 2016 debates against Hillary Clinton. He told you that he had respect for Hillary Clinton, that Hillary Clinton was smart as you were preparing. What about Kamala Harris? We hear not the same.
Well, certainly he's not saying that publicly in any way. And I can tell you that in 2016, he would regularly say during the many debate prep sessions that we had with him that Hillary Clinton was smart, that she was a good debater, that she was not to be taken lightly. And I don't think there was ever a moment in 2016 where he took her lightly. I do think he took Joe Biden lightly in 2020. And clearly during the prep sessions that I had with him, it was very, very difficult to get him to focus on what Joe Biden might or might not do in that first debate. And I think his performance in part reflected that. So the question's going to be, is what he's saying publicly what he really believes? We know that often with Donald Trump, that's performance. But I will tell you that in his 2016 prep, he was serious about getting ready for Hillary Clinton. In his 2020 debate prep, he was completely unserious about getting ready for Joe Biden. I think performances in both those debates reflected that approach.
All right, Chris Christie, you'll be watching with us. Martha?
And we have about 6 minutes left before the debate, so let's bring in Donna Brazil from the DNC and Reince Priebus, the RNC. Welcome to both of you. And Donna, let's start with you. You have said that Kamala Harris has to own the future, but she also has to own the past. So how does she do this?
It's quite easy, because I do believe that in talking about the future, you draw from your past. You draw from your past experiences. She draws from how she was raised, the values that was instilled in her as a young lady. Look, she is steady on her feet, still in her resolve, and tonight she should talk to the American people, sit in their living rooms, go to their kitchen table, and say, look, I have some ideas that I want to share with you. There's so much that we have done together over the last 4 years. But here's what I think we can do together over the next 4 years. Be positive in her approach and really remind the American people that we don't want to go back to the chaos and the confusion, the disaster that made, of course, the American people go out in droves in 2020 to fire the former president. Say, I want to be a president that lead all Americans. I want to keep us strong and secure. And here's the plan that I want to share with you tonight.
And Donna, I of course meant Biden. She has to own up to the Biden administration's any mistakes they made too, and Donald Trump is going to go after her on that.
You know, Martha, they made mistakes. Donald Trump and Mr. Pence made mistakes. But you know what? If we focus on our mistakes, we won't focus on all of the good things that we could do together as Americans. I do believe there's something to say about people who are now able to work. The people who can buy their insulin without paying over $1,000, $35. There's so much good that she can talk about from the visits that she's made to small towns across this country, large cities across the country. Bring us together. The American people want to be led into the future, not dragged back to another era.
And Reince, I want your thoughts on, you've also prepped Donald Trump for debates back in 2016, I believe. What Donald Trump do you think we'll see tonight? Can he be disciplined about talking about policies and what kind of president he will be?
Well, he certainly can be. I mean, the reality is Donald Trump doesn't have a lot to lose tonight. I mean, his support has always been almost unmovable. So the second piece is the honeymoon, I think, is over for Kamala Harris. And you all kind of touched on it with Donna. Kamala Harris has to answer for the state of the economy that she took a role in the Biden administration, the border, her past positions on decriminalizing the border, decriminalizing certain drugs, what her role was in Afghanistan. So really, the spotlight is on Kamala Harris tonight because she played a role in the Biden administration. She wants to act like she's not an incumbent. So this is where the focus is going to be. And she's got a lot to answer for tonight. And I think that's where Donald Trump's focus will be and where it actually should be tonight.
Well, one of the things he wants to do is have female voters look at him. How does he attract female voters after saying things about Kamala Harris? We'll see how he pronounces that tonight. Things he said about Kamala Harris, that she's dumb as a rock. That's not really going to attract female voters, is it?
Yeah, no, it won't. But I also think that just like he did in the first debate against Joe Biden, I think the formula here is to constantly tie Kamala Harris to the Biden administration, which is where Trump is winning against her on the economy, inflation, and all these other problems that we're having. And then sit back and let her talk. Let her explain herself, her past positions, current positions. How does she feel about how Biden has done on the economy? How does she feel about the border? Well, then turn it over and let her talk.
Okay, thanks so much for joining us tonight, Donna and Reince. We're all staying tuned. Can't wait.
And I have to say, as we are just less than 2 minutes away, this is such an extraordinary moment, especially, Rachel, when you consider that these two people that have been the center of our lives for the last 2 months have never met each other.
Have never even met each other. And Harris said, if you got something to say it to my face. The question tonight, does Donald Trump actually go there? He's questioned her racial identity, he's questioned her intelligence as well, or does he stick to the issues?
Look, this is the largest audience they're likely going to have in this race. It will be interesting to see if Harris can make clear the stark choice before voters. And where does she decide to land her punches? She can punch hard. Can she do that while rising above the needling coming her way? But first and foremost, are we going to see a handshake when the two of them meet for the first time?
We didn't back in 2016 when I did that debate. We'll stand by to see that tonight. But the first time, side to side, together.
And I have my doubts that we're going to see that handshake, but what we are going to see is a spirited debate and perhaps the most consequential general election debate we have ever seen, because almost certainly going to be the last one. So with the stakes so high, the presidential debate just moments away, we have the entire news division keeping an eye on everything. We are going to be fact-checking on our live blog. It's all going to be happening right here. The debate now just 10 seconds away, and we will be back with our post-game show as soon as it's over. We are going to toss it right now to David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Tonight, the high-stakes showdown here in Philadelphia between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Their first face-to-face meeting in this presidential election, their first face-to-face meeting ever.
A historic race for president upended just weeks ago. President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump now up against a new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
This is an ABC News special. The most consequential moment of this campaign, Kamala Harris.
Together, we will charge a new way forward.
Donald Trump.
We will soon be a great nation again.
Face to face, historic. The ABC News presidential debate. Here now, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris. Is that good debate? Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their #1 issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion. One of them is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. They would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what we have to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all, in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us, and I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump, I'll give you a minute for this.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas. I guess some good, some bad. But it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So, Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse, mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The poll say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century. which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI and quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vote. So the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's an execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar Every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually the fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime, a violation of their body, does not have the right to make decisions about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban, because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter, because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if you
Well, I won't have to, because again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. Her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. He went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea, and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free, but they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because you're running me, J.D. Vance has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I did discuss it with J.D. in all fairness. J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he's speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. We're wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade, and as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford child care as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President.
Excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF.
Check.
And the other thing, you should ask.
I saw you
Will
went
she
to the
allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th
you tell me
month,
what's
7th
happening
month?
about that?
Okay,
Well-
would you do that? Why don't you answer that
Why
question?
don't you
That's
answer
the
the
problem.
question? Would you
Because
please
under Roe
I just
v.
thought it
Wade,
was
you could
funny
do
that
abortions
Harris
in
was
the 8th
saying
month, the 8th
all these
month,
things about
and
Trump,
then
which just were obviously not true. He just said that he doesn't support banning abortion for like incest, rape, all that extra stuff. And she just like said, she's reading off cards. She just said, quote for quote, that he did support what he just said he didn't support. I feel like she's not really listening to what he's trying to say.
From Central America. We know that illegal border crossings have reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the number since then have dropped.
I just feel like she's not listening. She just keeps saying the same things over and over again that she's been saying, the things that have been like fed to her to say, even though they're not true. And Project 2025, Trump doesn't even support that. Even the people who made it didn't say that he supported it, and the Democrat Party is just trying to like spin it into saying that he supports it.
Came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks.
Well, COVID obviously like hurt the economy a lot, but Trump tried to leave jobs in the economy in a way that they would jump back, which we saw that during the Biden presidency, jobs like came back, and they like to claim that that was their doing, but it really wasn't. I think he's doing good. He's really funny. I like what he's saying. He's keeping us all entertained and like listening to what he's saying.
What are the things that you like so far? He said the way he responds.
I just like that he keeps his word, and he never really changes
what he says. He doesn't like waver his opinions in any sort of way. He kind of just sticks to what he believes, and he speaks from what he really thinks. So when you speak the truth, you don't have to keep up with all of your lies. Just like Harris she's been lying about things. She says things that she doesn't really believe, so she goes back and she changes it. I feel like Trump just sticks to his word, and he always says the same thing. He always like speaks from what he truly believes.
So, do you think she's making sense about windmills cause cancer? And what you will also notice is that
I don't think she's making sense. I don't think she's saying a whole lot that's like sustenance. I don't think she's really getting her point across.
you will not hear him talk about your
All right,
needs,
thank
your
you.
dreams, and your desires.
Yes. Ella Riker. Do you need to spell it? ELLARIKER. I'm 19. I'm an accounting major. Yeah, I go to UNC Charlotte. I'm a sophomore. Thank you.
She said people started leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's buzzing them in and paying them to be there. By the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been. One of the reasons they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that when they talked about that they talked about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because you're running me, J.D. Vance has said that you would veto it if it did come to a yes.
Well, I did discuss it with J.D. in all fairness. J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think they speak for me. But I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted the young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful. Let's go to Congress too. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
And Vice President Harris will give you more time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade, and as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford child care as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President, excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month? Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask that question? That's the question. You could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month, and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from
trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration law tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response. Well, I would like to respond. Why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the board.
First, I responded to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. She's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's busing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. The biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase. Make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, but steroids.
I just want to clarify here, you bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
I see people on television say people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from television.
But the people on television say my dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you think.
You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formally worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congressmember Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if we didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect
See, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration, because what we want to talk about earlier, so let's get back to the deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you have no problem using the U.S. military. You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe the number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
It is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. Crime in this country is through the roof, and we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
As you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
Excuse me, the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear, where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with the same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's just a physical wall. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand that this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people to stop it.
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy. The fake Russia investigation that went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to, Lindsay.
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of it, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hard-working mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands that strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump,
Well, first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies left. She was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now. You don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the old business going for nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was, because they had budgets, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead, we'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar. But they take 400, 500 acres of desert soil. These are good things for the environmental shield.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of the president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw it play out at the Capitol that day, with officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that is encouraged peacefully and patriotically. I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I asked, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, that's the person I'm talking about, the border. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? What are they going to be prosecuted? What are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David. All over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it. When are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle, they went into Seattle, they took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
Well, let me just ask you, you were the president, you were watching that unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
I had nothing to do with it other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing. I said, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. It wasn't done by me, it was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. I want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about the U.S. president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the president
Leslie point that was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jessica, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do. I would say we would both lead this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate, because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border, because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the border control, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed. So those people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue of both, because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short. Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
Yes, sir. We said, oh, we lost by a whisker. And we said sarcastically, look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. We got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told that I got 63, which is what I got in 2016. You can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm. Lost by a whisper. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as a clarification, you know this. You and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges. Many of them
looked at it, and so they said we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The President of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you do a special on it, I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you, we have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news, and the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying there.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the President there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisper, so he still believes he did not lose the election. That was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that came up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us, we won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do?
They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. He got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because I think we're going to do very well.
Turning out to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages were still being held Americans at home. Vice President Harris in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but he added, quote, it matters how. Saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians were dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How did you do it?
Let's understand what we're doing here. On October 7th, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and an equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump had you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza.
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people, and you ended up far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. I've been putting in her predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris says he hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that he's trying to divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un, and it is absolutely well known.
Stratton.
Spell it.
Stratton.
Okay, and how old are you, Doug?
I'm 66.
Where do you live?
I live here in Abington.
And are you retired?
I am retired, though I drive for a local transportation company.
What did you do when you worked full-time?
I was a pastor.
Oh, a pastor?
Yes.
Where?
In Hatboro.
Okay. Are you a registered Democrat, Republican?
I am a registered voter.
Registered voter. Okay, so tell me, you were heading into the debate, I think already leaning towards Harris?
Without a doubt, yes.
Okay, so tell me your impressions what are your first impressions of this debate?
Basically, the mistruths of the former president have been enough to convince me that I want to continue and grow the support for Ms. Harris. Her manner of reaching out and presenting her policies has been quite clear. Mr. Trump has done nothing but go back to his same old 3 or 4 statements.
So did she exceed your expectations?
She has exceeded some of my expectations. She's been very clear with the policies that she'd like. I still would like a few more details on how are we going to pay for the $50,000 small business loan credits, but she's well on her way.
You were laughing at some of what he was saying, like literally laughing. What was
yes,
that?
I was.
What was that? Was that involuntary or just like unbelievable? Like
it was a combination. It was a combination.
A combination of what?
Of an involuntary laugh and also just a mocking laugh. His statements have been so far off from reality and truth that the most likely response is laughter, as the rest of the world laughs at him.
Pennsylvania is a swing state, obviously.
Yes, it is.
So do you think, and it's going to be, all the polls say it's very, very close here.
I understand it.
And she's got to appeal to those undecided voters.
Mm-hmm.
And so does he, quite frankly. They
Yes.
both do. So what does she have to do to get those undecided voters?
Well, I think what she has done, in my mind, should be sufficient to begin to convince them. The other side of that, I actually have a difficult time understanding how people are supporting Mr. Trump at this point. In listening to what I hear, personal defense, not caring about those who are around him. It just is. It leaves me kind of stunned. As a pastor, I can't understand how people who would claim the faith that I do could possibly provide him support.
Gotcha. Anything I didn't ask you that you want to add?
I think I've probably dug my hole deep enough.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
See you.
All right.
Air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the
Excuse me.
javelins,
Yeah.
the air
I'm a reporter for the Associated Press.
Okay.
We'll have to talk to one of you about your impressions of this debate.
Well, okay.
Let me, yeah, you'll just look at me and not the light.
Okay.
What's your name?
Robert Dixon.
Robert?
Correct.
Dixon?
Correct.
Okay. And how old are you, Mr. Dixon?
How old am I?
Yeah.
76.
76.
Yes.
Are you from Abington?
No, I'm from right outside Mount Airy, Philadelphia. I'm a member of the church here. I'm a deacon at the church here.
Are you retired?
Semi. I'm an attorney, so we never retire.
You're an attorney? Okay.
Yeah.
Are you a Democrat? Republican?
Democrat.
Okay. And who are you leaning towards? Do you know who you're going to vote?
Yeah. Harris. The other man's incompetent, and he's tried to take over the country. You can't do that. You can't have that. You just have to stand up. Some things you don't do.
Let's turn over here.
Okay.
Away from.
Okay.
How do you think the debate has gone?
Well, as I expected, I think Donald Trump has done a lot of lying. He had his own mind, his own set of facts on everything, and he's sticking to them pretty much. Harris is trying to interact with him and putting out ideas and things of that nature. None of that he can address because he's just basically, lying. He's talking about all the people that come into the country, things are going down. We recovered from a horrible COVID pandemic, which he helped precipitate by his complete failure to handle it properly. And, they just want to talk about it, so he just keeps repeating the same old lies. But if you lies big enough, the people, he has a certain percentage of people that want to stick with it.
Do you think Harris is doing, what do you think of her performance?
I think she's doing I think she's doing real well.
Be expected.
And I think she's trying to hit the points, and she's sort of goading him into him keeping, talking about himself. So.
This is a very close election in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is a very important state. So do you think that she's doing enough to appeal to that sliver of undecided voter that she has to get?
I've been involved in election. I used to do a lot of electioneering when I was young. Pennsylvania went more Democratic than it has. It used to switch back and forth. He won. They really haven't won. Republicans really haven't won anything big in Pennsylvania since he won. So I think that we're in good stead with the people that we have in office now. They always vote for Bob Casey. They voted for Bob Casey when he and his father weren't running, but somebody else put their name up in Bob Casey years ago. That guy won because Pennsylvanians evidently like the name Bob Casey. So I think we're going to do well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Take care.
The alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is Commander-in-Chief, and the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
You talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. Otherwise, we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind.
And the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier. But now, please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 in women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow, quiet place. He would have been sitting in Moscow. What's happening in Israel now? Eventually, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons.
Eat you for lunch.
Talked about that. He's got nuclear weapons.
Hey, that's
Nobody
his
ever
dog.
thinks about that.
Eat
And
you for lunch.
eventually, maybe he's maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does have that. Something we don't like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war. Because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin. And she did. and the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate as soon as they left to do the invasion.
President Trump, you did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said at the beginning, she's been given her bunch of last conference. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader, upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is Commander-in-Chief, and the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen, for years we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up. I say, one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. Otherwise, we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate. And we witnessed a poignant moment today in Kamala that honoring the soldiers who died in the Canada withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agree with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be Commander-in-Chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that he began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because of what they do with the wrong people all the time. but I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He's still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than that, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind. And we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. One thing on now to racial politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago, but she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something, I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read that she was not black, that she put out. And I'll say that. And then I read that she was black. And that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that. Want better than this. Want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, a lot of people, including Bill Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park fight. They admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. but they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. She's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had. A horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad that she can't get away with that.
Briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible. One who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Let's turn to policy. Let's turn to policy.
President Trump.
Let's turn to policy.
To defund the police, she has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun. She has a plan to not allow fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else. That's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need to the President has said something twice that I need to respond to. I'm sorry, we're going to respond, Vice President. President Trump, this is now your third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say we're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after we first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care. Always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up, they wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people, I have a lot of good people in this administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just so yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today? Well, first of all, I absolutely supported over the last 4 years as Vice President private healthcare options, but what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point. that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away, so stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time. When I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it. Vice President Ross, in terms of where Donald Trump stands on it.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a mistake. And number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't called.
View of politics. Yeah.
Are you undecided voter? Do you know what you're voting for?
So far, no. I feel like they don't really fit me still. It's complicated. I don't know. I feel like they're both not the right candidate for me, based on this debate and the past debates. I'm still undecided.
Do you think both candidates are staying on topic when it comes to the questions?
That's a funny question. I would say yes, but they're moving around from it. I wouldn't say direct, but they're trying to get their answers across. That's what I say.
One of the topics that we just heard was about gun ownership. And then we heard Harris talking about that she owns a gun.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What's your reaction like?
I agree. I mean, there's the Second Amendment and stuff, right? And honestly, I'm fine with that, right? It's about the gun policy. It's not about the ownership of the gun. It's about what rights you have about owning a gun, the policy of getting it, right? So I don't think it affects me.
How do you like your answer? What do you think about her answer?
A little mixed. Again, they don't really go directly to the question, but I think I like her answer. I think she did well.
And then one of the questions they brought up was about clean energy, young voters, and climate change.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. How do you feel about that?
Based on what they said, I feel like it's strong. But again, neither candidate, I feel like, engaged me in a way for me to, agree with them. I do agree that we should, spend more time on clean energy and develop more technologies to beat climate change. And yeah, what was the other question again? Like the other part?
The other thing they brought up was healthcare.
Healthcare.
Healthcare, that he didn't have a concrete plan at this point. Also, he finds a better plan. What do you make of that?
Well, about healthcare, again, I didn't really do much research about it, but I think that they have both great plans. It depends on, if it goes right, oh well.
He said that Obamacare is too expensive for people. Do you think he was making a good case on that? Not really having a plan so far for him, or what do you think?
Too expensive? I mean, again, I don't really know much information about it. I mean, I just got into politics, I would say, but I feel like if I learned more and understood more and focused and learned about it more, and it would be beneficial.
Do you think the moderators are doing a good job tonight?
Sorry?
Do you think the moderators are doing a good job tonight?
I think so. With all this and all the interrupting, I feel like if I was a monitor, I couldn't handle it.
Just very last question. What else from everything they've said tonight? What stands out?
One that is focused on the future.
What stands out?
And the other that
Honestly, for me, is about the crowd, right? And because I'm not used to this, right? I come from a different perspective, right? And the reason I'm here is to learn different, broaden my experience with politics. And honestly, I feel like debates are generally still the same throughout all 3 debates in the past years. I feel like they're all the same. And yeah, it's just people trying to get their point across.
Final question. They're getting to final closing statements right now. Who do you think has performed so far better?
I feel like, question-wise, I feel like Harris was more direct with her answers and questions, while Trump was trying to bounce around the question and not really direct. But so I feel like Harris did a better job than Trump.
And
in what we can do together.
Do the answers tonight, the performance tonight, change the way you see them, or
Stay the same. Again, they're both politicians, right? I don't feel, again, they're not really direct. There's obviously lies between both candidates, and I feel like they did not change my opinion at all.
And what city you live in?
I live in Waxhaw, North Carolina. No problem. Thank you.
Tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was the DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I only have one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs. And all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it, because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like, we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just asked one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world they laugh. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
And we are here live on ABC with our post-debate comments. Afghanistan, they had it all, and it was historic. John Carl, fiery,
Wow. That was quite a debate. And I'm Jonathan Carl here with Mary Bruce and Rachel Scott. All reporters across the news division have been updating our live blog, looking at some of the allegations made back and forth, doing fact checks, and all of that on ABCnews.com. But I would like to replay a moment at the very start of this debate, because it was quite a moment. The handshake.
Thank you.
I mean, first of all, we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it for a long time.
They're enemies now.
It sought him out, put hands out, and also made the first one.
Do you mind if I get the light?
Oh, yeah.
So not the bottom line. All right.
I think
trying to get to a Discord.
clearly what
Give me some
Kamala
time to work on
Harris
it.
did was be the candidate of the
Yeah, I'm gonna figure out.
Donald Trump seemed angry within 4 minutes. We saw him going from very serious at the beginning, never really seemed to look at to really delicate at some points, trying to make his point. I don't think there were a lot of policy and plans on either side of that.
I'm gonna go on this side because people will be sitting on this side.
What we had was not
Much more in common than what separates us, and we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force.
Not just angry, but also proud. And in contrast, Harris, who again, much of the world doesn't know, Harris looked like she belonged on the stage, looked like she is somebody that can serve as president.
And that is certainly how the campaign is feeling tonight. I can tell you the Harris campaign feels very good. They feel they had a very strong night, that she was in command, that she did look presidential, and that she was able, they feel, to hold Donald Trump accountable for his actions. And of course, that was their goal going into this, that she would be able to put Donald Trump's record under a microscope. And they feel that the strongest example of that is that exchange on abortion, where she was able really to blame Donald Trump directly to his face. I mean, she said, what about putting women in
Check. Perfect. Can we start by getting your full name? And spell it out for me?
Ryan Hughes, RyanHughesES.
And tell me, how old are you and where do you live?
I am 26. I live in Charlotte.
Do you mind taking a small step back?
Yeah.
There you go. Tell me, what do you make of tonight's debate?
I thought it was definitely interesting. I don't know how much it's going to move the needle for anybody that still hasn't made a decision yet. I thought they both had good moments, both had bad moments. Particularly with Trump, I think that he got baited a couple times with some of her personal jabs, like his rally sizes, people leaving his rally early. She brought that up, I thought, very strategically during the abortion segment. During the immigration segment, knowing that that's kind of a weak spot for her. And so I would have liked to see him be a little bit more calm in those situations, not take that bait, and talk more about the policy, because I think that's a winning policy thing for him. But on the flip side, she had her own bad moments. I thought with the Israel portion, she still has not really been able to commit one way or the other with that. Neither has Biden. And I think it's important, when you have a war like that, you need to commit to one side or the other and not try to both sides it, because what you end up doing is alienating both of them.
And tell me about just yourself. Are you a Trump supporter? Are you voting for him, or where are you?
Yeah, I would consider myself a Trump voter. I'm definitely a Republican first, rather than a Trump supporter first. But I was satisfied with his job during his first term. I thought he was going to easily win re-election until COVID came along, and that kind of changed the whole entire landscape of the world, really. But I'm a political science major. I'm very into politics. I lived in D.C. for a while. worked up there in Congress, so I've seen firsthand how government can operate. And yeah, I think Trump is a good leader to have. He said it during the debate. He's an open book. Like, you never have to really guess what he's thinking. That's kind of a double-edged sword because sometimes it gets him in trouble. But I'd rather have that as my leader than somebody where I'm not sure what they're standing on in certain issues. With him, there's no question of where he stands on every issue.
Do you think both candidates stayed on topic, or do you think maybe?
I think they both, like I said, they both kind of had their moments. I think she probably stayed on topic a little bit better than him. He, like I said, took the bait with the rally size comments. But, it wasn't super off script or super out of left field in a lot of the things. So I think they both did a fairly good job of that. But I'll give her credit for that. She probably did stay on topic more than he did.
As far as the moderators, how do you think they did tonight?
I thought they were fairly good. They started to kind of fact check just him, I noticed. They didn't really do that to her, although she had some kind of blatant lies. But, overall, I think they did well. It was interesting with the muting, because I had heard before that as soon as they were done speaking, the microphones could be muted, like the CNN debate, but that sort of seemed to not be the case, where they kind of were able to bargain with the moderators, like, oh, well, I just need to reply to that real fast, just give me 1 minute, and they caved in each time, which I'm fine with. They cave in each time because it gives both the candidates the chances. So overall, they probably got a B from me if I had to grade them on an A to F scale. I think they did fine. They could have been a little better, but nothing groundbreaking.
They kind of tied climate change with young voters.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that. How do you feel about that?
I think climate change is real. I think anybody that's denying it at this point just isn't looking at the facts. Where I kind of differ is I don't think America is as responsible in the climate problem as Kamala might think we are. I think when you look at other countries, such as China, who has triple our population and virtually no regulations on the environment, that's where a lot of the climate issue is coming from. It's a worldwide issue. It's not an American issue. So, as far as what we do here, we do have a lot of regulations, especially compared to the other major powers in the world, like China, like Russia. We can only do so much as 300, 400 million people when you have countries like China and India who have, combined over 2 billion people. It's difficult for us to fix everything.
One of the last topics that they talked about was gun ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And Vice President Harris talked about having also tell me about that.
I was a little surprised she said that. Yeah, I was a little surprised.
Can you tell me, you just have full sentence of what you're talking about? You were surprised about?
I was surprised that she said she had a gun. I don't know if that's true or not, but, I'll take her for her word. Look, she's an American citizen. I think that every American citizen should have a gun for personal protection. I think that it's one of the great things about our country is that we're allowed to be able to defend ourselves. And, I was surprised by the angle she took on that, considering, a lot of times Democrats will try to, if you bring up the gun debate, they'll bring up, school shootings, that stuff, banning automatic rifles. So yeah, it was an interesting approach by her. I thought she kind of actually tried to sway a little bit farther to the right, which is to be kind of expected in a general election. You want to pick up some middle ground voters. But yeah, her gun comment and then the comment about Israel, I thought was not what I expected from her. I expected her to remain on the left side of those issues, and she seems to take on a more centrist or even Republican approach.
Did anything stood out to you regarding their body language? Any of those exchanges that they had tonight?
Yeah, Trump had the comment of, don't speak while I'm talking or whatever, obviously playing on her past comments in her debate with Pence. I thought that they both looked confident. They both looked good. I think her voice was a little shaky at the beginning. She came out a little bit nervous, but she found her groove after a few questions. Trump's done this, a million times. He always kind of projects that confidence. I didn't think he had any issues with that. Overall, they both look good.
Did Harris best Trump at any point make more sense or anything?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think she was able to successfully get him off topic, specifically talking about the immigration stuff. Like I said, that's a kind of the slam dunk for the Republicans, as the abortion is the slam dunk for the Democrats. And, in the last debate, Trump did a great job of getting Biden off the topic of abortion. And tonight she did a good job of getting him off the topic of immigration with the crowd size comment. I thought she did really well there. And I mean, yeah, she had other moments. Like, you know, I don't think, I agree with her that we don't have as many differences as maybe the media or social media will make us think. I'm of the belief that, you know, there's 90% of the country falls somewhere in the middle, 5% is going to fall on the far right, 5% is going to fall on the far left. The problem is that with social media, those 5% on each side are the loudest voices on those platforms. So it's easy to look at, you know, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, and see, okay, like, you know, we're divisive, we all hate each other. But in reality, you go out into the real world, it's not like that at all.
Do you feel like you witnessed history tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it was significant. You know, it's this was the first real debate, I guess you can say, because the Biden debate's obviously, you know, something way in the past. Yeah, it was interesting. I was very surprised that they shook hands at the beginning. That shocked me. And I even joked, I'm like, I guarantee they don't do that. But, you know, she approached him. I thought that was a good move by her to approach him, to shake hands. And it was obviously a good move by her to not leave her, good move by him to not leave her hanging. So, yeah, you know, I mean, it felt significant. I feel like the final debate, though, will always be the most significant debate. That's going to be when everybody's truly paying attention. Right now, you know, I'd be interested to see what the ratings were. But, you know, as we get closer to the election and sort of more, you know, average people that aren't into politics as I am pay attention, you know, we have October debates. Those, I think, will carry a little bit more weight. But, yeah, I mean, it was cool to see. Obviously, one of the great things about America is that we come together and we can debate. I thought that they actually did a pretty good job of not launching personal attacks tonight. They did their best to kind of stay away from that, especially Trump. He gets himself in a lot of trouble with that. It can make him look bitter. So, you know, I think, yeah, they did a good job, but I'll be interested to see how the next two go.
And just be here in North Carolina, consider a swing state.
Yes.
What do you make of the young voters and the difference they can make for this upcoming election?
Yeah, I mean, young voters, obviously Gen Z is a massive generation. And as the older voters start to pass away, yeah, you know, that kind of new reign comes in. Yeah, North Carolina is a very unique state. The fact that we've elected a Democrat governor in the past two elections, but also voted for Trump in the past two elections. It's very unique in that way, that we are truly a purple state when you look at that. So I'm excited to live in a state that actually has a voice in the election. You know, it's great to be in a place that you're going to have people from all walks of life. So, you know, obviously if you're out in Nashville, it's going to be a little bit more liberal versus if you are, you know, out more in the country. But yeah, I think, you know, young people, the whole entire knock on young people forever has been that they can be into politics, but they don't actually go to the polls and vote. So I think getting people out to vote is very important. I'll be interested to see, obviously Gen Z is, like I said, a massive population that can now vote, most of them. So it'll be interesting to see the actual pure numbers that come out in November. But I hope that a lot of young people vote. I like, you know, I'm a young person. I like to see other young people involved in politics, whether on my team or not. That doesn't really matter to me. You know, I just want to see people care about the country, care about the future of the country.
Just lastly, what are those issues that you care more the most that kind of you think affect you here locally?
Well, I think, you know, if you look at the economy, that's the biggest thing. You know, I was renting an apartment when Trump was in office, renting an apartment when Biden and Kamala were in office. The rent prices have skyrocketed. That to me is something that matters a lot. That's something like, you know, as somebody starting out in a career, I'm not sitting on millions of dollars where that doesn't matter to me. You know, rent prices matter to me a lot. Cost of food, cost of, you know, gasoline, all those things matter a lot to me because that's something that I'm daily having to deal with. So for me, the number one thing is the economy. I feel like, obviously, you know, with COVID, that kind of swayed towards the end of Trump's presidency, but I thought during Trump's presidency, before that happened, the economy was booming. I was able to afford my rent. I was not working crazy hours at a job or anything like that. And I was still able to go out with friends, you know, enjoy my personal life. With her and Biden, obviously, you know, inflation's very real. I would have liked to see him kind of push her a little bit more on how exactly her policies on the economy would differ from Biden's. I thought that he probably could have gotten something good out of that if he did that, because thus far her policies are virtually the same as President Biden's, and that obviously has not worked to this point. So that's a big thing for me. And then being on a college campus, I like to see the First Amendment upheld in all scenarios. You know, to me, without the First Amendment, we don't have a country. Freedom of speech is the most important thing, and censorship, anything like that, is extremely problematic. Being on social media as much as I am, it's concerning when I hear Zuckerberg talk about, oh, yeah, actually we did cover stories for the Biden campaign. We did cover stories regarding COVID. That stuff, that has no place in America. That's not what our country is for. We want a free and fair press, and I really think that we lack that. So that's a major concern for me as well. Thank you.
Again, you're 26?
Yeah.
You live in Charlotte?
Yes.
And what is your major again?
I was poli-sci.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Can I talk to you a little bit? Yeah. Just a couple questions. Yeah. Just final reaction. Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sorry. Significantly shorter than Ryan.
What's that?
I'm shorter than Ryan, so.
Just a little bit. Not that much.
Yeah,
Let me get this lights a little more. If you're doing this.
what's that?
I'm gonna increase the lights for a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, whatever you need to do. We're just doing it for the. Can you just wait a few minutes and we need help carrying stuff out?
And do you mind taking a small step forward? Right there. Perfect.
Yeah. I got a MAGA hat, but I chose not to wear that on
Where's Zach? Is Zach still on campus?
Zach? I have no idea.
That dude unapologetically wore everything he wanted.
Yeah, he would come in and Trump here head to toe.
Tell me your full name, spell it out.
Brian Major, B-R-I-A-N, M-A-J-O-R.
I just switched this out. Can you do it again?
Yeah, Brian Major, B-R-I-A-N, M-A-J-O-R.
And what is your major and how old are you?
I'm 30 years old. My major is interdisciplinary studies with a concentration in gerontology and a minor in biology.
And your college?
College, UNC Charlotte.
We have producers working on this. Tell me, what are your reactions about tonight's debate?
So overall, I thought it went well. I think Trump he had some good points. I also think he got caught up in his ego. I think he kept focusing on stuff in 2020 that wasn't necessary. That's in the past, leave it in the past. But overall, it went kind of how I expected. I wish he would have done some more things about talking about Harris being the sitting vice president. So why all these policies she's talking about, why is she not doing them right now? But overall, it's about what I expected.
What are some of those back and forths that you noticed that maybe stood out to you tonight?
I'm sorry, was that again?
Some of those back and forths that they had tonight.
They had, like I said, I think they focused on things that were silly. I think Trump, like I said, got caught up in his past as president, which is just a waste of his time. He should focus more of this stuff on Harris. It's all on her right now. She's the sitting vice president, so all these policies he's talking about, why is she not doing them right now? So back and forth. But overall, I think it was all right.
In which areas do you feel like Trump did good tonight?
Did well in? Let's see. I'm glad he talked about the abortion stuff. He talked about putting it back, Roe v. Wade back to the states instead of keeping it a federal issue. He made a good point that he's not making it a federal issue. He's keeping it at the state level. I'm glad he's doing that. It kind of takes some of the wind out of their sails. And then also he's distancing himself from Project 2025. They kept saying he's part of it. He's saying he's not. So I like that he's talking about that.
How do you feel about the moderators tonight and just the overall debate, how it was conducted?
I thought it was well. I didn't detect any super biases in any way or anything like that. I thought they did an okay job. I mean, there are questions I would have liked to have them ask, but I'm not the moderator, so yeah.
Was there any points where you maybe found it frustrating, maybe angry, or just laughed at some of the points that were making tonight? Either candidate.
For what?
Just either candidate.
The biggest thing I think my biggest frustration with Trump was that he was focusing on stuff that wasn't relevant to time. He should keep the pressure on Harris, but he kept bringing up stuff from his past, which is not needed. That's 4 years ago. We all know what happened. Move forward.
And just tell me about yourself. Are you a longtime Trump supporter? Are you a Republican? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I'm a Republican. I guess I'll agree with Ryan. I wouldn't say I don't ride and die with Trump. I'm a party first Republican. Trump was not my first candidate, but I'm definitely going to back him. Yeah, so I'm not hardcore Trump either way. I'll support him for the election, but yeah, I'm a Republican though.
Somebody told me the same thing too. Somebody also supported somebody else, and then another supporting Trump. Who was the person who supported you?
I was initially for a Ron DeSantis. I would have loved a Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley team. I think they were both good, but they both fizzled out pretty quickly. Nikki Haley lasted longer than Ron DeSantis, obviously, but those would have been the two I probably would have gone over Trump. Not that I was disappointed with Trump, but I just think we know what Trump has, and I didn't think he was going to be a strong candidate. He's done better than I thought he would, so I'll give him that. But I would have initially gone with a DeSantis-Haley team.
And then just issues that affect you the most here locally. There's a lot of issues that we hear nationally, but locally, what are those issues that you care most about?
I think like most people, it's going to be the economy. Things are expensive. Being in college, kind of a fixed income, stuff like that. A lot of students work jobs. Most students I talk to, so I'm 30, but most of the students here are, 18 to 20, 22, and they're still working, full time to kind of make ends meet, also help pay for school and have some money to spend. So I think the economy is definitely a hard one. I mean, we have professors talk about our job, your job's a full-time student, but I think in this day and age, you can't just be a full-time student. You have to work unless you're fortunate enough to have a full ride or enough scholarships, stuff like that. So probably locally the economy.
And then climate change was brought up. It was tied to young voters. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think I think for climate change, if you want to talk about it, you can't seriously have a conversation about climate change unless you bring up nuclear as a viable means. And Trump said he was for solar, stuff like that. But if you want a viable long-term means of clean renewable energy, you're going to have a serious conversation about nuclear power on a large scale across the country and increase that industry.
I noticed some people react when Harris admitted that she owns a gun. What do you make of that?
Okay, she owns a gun, but Tim Walz definitely is not pro-gun. He talked about carrying weapons of war and they should not be allowed. I was in the military. We had the same guns. I never went to a combat zone. I was on a submarine, but we were trained on a 9mm. We had the M16, stuff like that. So same guns, but I still believe everyone has a right to carry their AR and their handguns. Does she have a gun? Maybe, I don't know. But that's her right. If she wants to have a gun, she can. But I'm against them imposing anyone else's right not to carry a gun.
And just lastly, do you feel like this debate did much for either candidate, or?
No, I don't think it did. Maybe a few people, but I got a text earlier, someone showing the polls. There really wasn't much of a change. I don't think you'll see much. Maybe a little bit here and there, but I think it's going to bounce around back and forth until we get closer to the election. So honestly, I don't think it did that much of a difference.
And just being part of this group here, young voters coming out to engage and watch this debate, what's the importance of the young voter in this coming election?
Well, like anything, young voters are, they are the future. All these policies we're talking about, they generally have downstream effects. Don't really see the full effect of it until, 5, 6, 10 years after the fact. So they're the ones that are going to reap the benefits of it now. You can talk about things like, what is it called? Loan repayments for students. That doesn't affect students right now, but obviously that will affect them in the future. So, if they want that, I'm against it, but, that's something that will affect voters now. And voters who were in college years ago are the ones who are, will potentially reap the benefits of these policies I'm talking about. So it's just what they vote now is what's going to affect them in the future. So.
Was there a topic that was maybe not brought up tonight, or maybe you did not get a clear answer from either candidate about what you want to hear?
I would have liked to hear more about their plans for the economy. I think we had a word cloud up earlier, and the biggest thing we talked about was the economy. I think across the aisle, everyone agrees the economy is crap. Harris kept saying she had a plan. I would have loved to see what the plan is. Like I said, she's the sitting president. If you have a plan, why not do it right now? And then, I will see what Trump's plan was. But we kind of know how Trump's economy was. We see what he did back then. I know he lowered the corporate tax rate significantly, but we were above Europe, and he dropped it down to lower levels. So I would have liked to hear both sides talk about it more. So, yeah.
Is there anything else? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Again, you live here in Charlotte?
Huntersville. I live in Huntersville.
Huntersville?
Yeah.
And your age again?
30.
And your title for the group?
Vice President.
Can you tell me the full name of the group and the title for the
Yeah, Vice President of the UNC Charlotte College Republicans.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to take a 1 minute to wrap up.
Yeah, do you want any, chips or anything? Or
Yeah, do you want food?
cookies?
Oh, no, I'm good.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm going to go home and...
His charismatic approach, what he thinks is charismatic, while Kamala Harris is more focused on research, facts, policies, critique, analysis.
And so, with that said, did you watch the Trump-Biden debate? And if so, how do you think this one compared to that one?
I watched a little bit of the Trump-Biden debate, to be honest. I think the Harris-Trump debate was actually more enjoyable to watch, to be honest. I think because of Kamala Harris, because of the way she presented herself as a public speaker, as someone who has a lot of knowledge, has a lot of facts. There are certain things that I necessarily don't agree with her, certain policies, specifically foreign policies, such as Israel-Hamas war, what's happening in Palestine, the way she addresses them. I don't expect Kamala Harris to have the full critical, analytical, or radical knowledge about that issue, but at least I enjoyed, watching her present herself, keeping her poise, making sure she addresses Trump the way he attacks her. I think she shows us how a public speaker or how a debater does a really good job in keeping themselves, and protecting themselves while on stage. So, as a public speaker myself and as an educator, I thought that was very enjoyable and very practical. It's definitely a debate I would show to my students. It's definitely a debate I would tell my students to watch and analyze public speaking, debate on live television, how it looks like, also fact-checking. I thought that was definitely a very good and enjoyable show to watch, yeah.
And so kind of to go back to one of your earlier points about, you don't necessarily agree with Harris's foreign policy.
Mhm.
One thing that she said today that she has said in the past is making our military the most lethal. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, let's be very clear, even regardless of Harris's opinion on that, military force is something that is very important to the United States government. It's not an opinion, it's not a fact, it's not a perspective. It's not an opinion, it's not a perspective, it's a fact. Military reform, military force is something that is very important, right? And I think the American government hones in on military force so much. There's a lot of investment in military force and law enforcement. So that's something that's kind of unavoidable. And I think no matter who the president is, and if they want to get that seat, they're going to have to be in favor of military force. This is just an analysis, but a factual analysis. So a lot of people may not get, for example, I'm anti-war. I don't believe that, investing too much in military force can be beneficial for our communities. There should be military training. There should be military education. There should be law enforcement education. There should be consultation and reform of understanding within law enforcement entities such as police departments, the military, and everything. Education is important, but I feel like the government is focused more on investing billions and billions of dollars in weapons. So when I hear lethal power and weapon or terms like that, it doesn't sit too well with me, right? Because it makes me think, well, are we investing in wars or are we investing in protecting ourselves from wars? So the lines tend to be a little bit blurred. So I'm not quite too sure how to feel about it, I understand where the president is coming from, but, I hope we can focus more on education. I hope we can focus more on educating our military forces on how to protect rather than attack, maybe. And that's for any country and any government around the world. If we really want to have a sense of peace, But again, it all goes back to the idea of like communities protection. So when we talk about lethal weapons or like lethal military force, how do communities of color or communities of the marginalized global majority feel about the term like that? So that's just my only critique about it. It's more than whether I agree or disagree. It's more of like criticizing it and more like how do I consult maybe the president to look more into it from an educational and civic engagement perspective.
And then there were a lot of issues important to you that they didn't touch on. But were there any moments that did stand out to you? Any moments?
Absolutely.
Points that did stand out to you?
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, it all goes back to, I think Kamala Harris really knows and understands how to address her audience very well. She really understands that, you know, there is an American dream and there is an American identity, and she believes in the idea of uniting people together, and she cares for the people from an American civil perspective at least. And I thought that was very well presented. I thought that was great. I thought there was a lot of defense towards migrants. You know, when Donald Trump brought up the idea of, you know, immigrants, specifically it was Haitians, you know, saying that Haitians are eating cats and dogs in Ohio, which personally for me is something as a personal attack, because I don't appreciate someone putting immigrants under that idea of them being demonized. I thought she responded very well and defended immigrant identities and immigrant narratives and understanding that immigrants are humans and should not be demonized. So that's something that I really appreciated about her, because it's something that a lot of migrants need. I would say also maybe reframe the term immigrants to more expats, to understand more that they're more expats. No matter where they're coming from, whether Central America, the Caribbean, Middle Eastern, Arab countries, you know, or Southeast Asian countries, humanizing immigrants instead of looking at them as demons. And I think Donald Trump did that. He demonized them, and she kind of defended the narrative that they are human and they should not be demonized. So that's something that I really appreciated from her end.
Well, those are all the questions that I have for you, but is there anything else you'd like to add or anything else you'd like to say?
I just think that, you know, people, viewers, voters should critically analyze all the time, regardless of who they're voting for. Critical analysis, education, being radical is very important. Understanding facts, understanding the fact that if you are voting for a president, you can still criticize their policies and yet still vote for them because you feel they're a better choice. I feel like any president or any public figure should be criticized in terms of their policies, but at the same time not attacking their identities, especially if their identities is a black woman or a person from the global majority. You know, it's different when you're criticizing a person such as Donald Trump, who is, you know, a white cisgender male, for example, and who has upheld power all of his life. That's a little bit different. So I'm coming at it from a civic engagement and DI perspective, is that we can criticize policies. We can criticize certain things that public figures, political governmental figures are imposing, at the same time while giving them our support or not supporting them. And having critical discourse and not attacking each other as citizens, but rather having critical conversation and respecting all the point of views, as long as the point of views are not disrespectful, and as long as the point of views are not rooted in racism, and as long as they're not rooted in pro-war thinking, you know, or pro-genocide thinking, as long as the opinions are radical, acceptable, have a sense of like diplomacy, but as long as they're not rooted in hate or anti-community. Was that good? Was that too much? Was that a lot? Yes? Yes?
That was fantastic.
I felt like I rambled too much, but you know, take and put what you want out of it, please.
Actually, while you were talking, I was thinking, I'm like, I'm gonna have to get him for another interview.
Like, listen, this guy is a little bit... Oh, Lord, no!